Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on our Rule of Law and Road to Peace, our trip to Ireland, October 6th to the 14th. We are so excited to have you join us this afternoon, but we're going to be even more excited to have you join us later this year in October. Before we get to our amazing upcoming journey to Ireland, I wanted to take an opportunity to introduce my co-host for the webinar this afternoon, Nicola Balmain, the founder and president of Nanda Journeys. Nicola, thank you so much for coming and being a part of this amazing event.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always good to talk about our programs with you, Michael, and I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the Nanda family. Everybody, I really appreciate you being here this afternoon and hope you'll be able to join Richard in Ireland later this year.
Yeah, and the journey, I mean, you've created an amazing experience for all the people that are planning on attending. I can't wait to get to all that information. But before we do, I know we want to tell those that might not be as familiar with Nanda Journeys, who Nanda Journeys is, but I also know that Richard was supposed to be here today, and unfortunately he couldn't make it. So I'll let you take the next 5-10 minutes, tell us a little bit about Nanda, and then we'll look forward to the journey.
Absolutely. And again, welcome everybody. Feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat at the end of today's conversation. Michael and I will be taking your questions. We do have some details to share with you first and foremost. So if you would like to maybe go to the next slide for me, Michael, and we'll share a little bit about Nanda Journeys. So again, welcome to the Nanda family, everybody. It's my passion. Travel has been in my blood since I was a very young child. And I started my career in the UK. I grew up in England to English parents with Irish grandparents. So I have a really strong affinity to this particular program and to the destination of Ireland. I say my blood runs green, but I am English. So again, welcome. Nanda Journeys, travel for people with purpose and passion. Some of you on the call today may be really familiar with an organization called People-to-People Ambassador Programs. And that's an organization I used to work for and where Richard and I became acquainted. Sadly, they closed in 2015, but my heart was already lit. I really loved making the people connections, really doing transformative travel, and really getting to the heart of a culture, the destination, and having impactful experiences. I couldn't see myself going back to anything else, honestly, Michael. So I decided to put my big girl pants on, as I often tell myself, and we started Nanda Journeys. Nanda means joy in Sanskrit. It's something I hope to infuse in every single journey that we create: joy, happiness, and an impactful experience. We're really proud of the accolades we've received so far. And again, we extend a warm welcome to you, our guests listening this afternoon. I want to share a little bit with you about the Nanda Way. And this is something that's evolved over time. As I mentioned, we started this company in 2015. And lots of people have said this phrase back to us, whether it be the delegation leaders, our participants, or even the people in the destination that have been guiding the experience and meeting with our guests. They just kept saying, "I love the Nanda Way." And it became part of our ethos. It became part of our mission. It became part of our cornerstone pillars of how we create a program. We want them to be really authentic, whether it be the experiences that we're having together and exchanging details about your program, talking about whether or not this is a good fit for our clients. We want it to be people-centric. Meeting people is really important to us. So you'll always meet local people. You'll engage with community members, professionals in your own sphere of influence in terms of the law profession is really important. But also we want to be socially responsible with our programs. Well, what does that mean exactly? We want to contract with people that are providing their own community with a service. So by contracting with local hotels that are owned and operated in the country that you're visiting, we're ensuring that money stays in the local economy, provides jobs, provides opportunity. And in a lot of ways as well, we're protecting the cultural heritage of the destination we're visiting by doing it that way. If it's not obvious, we do everything with purpose and we do everything with a great passion. And we always keep our small group experiences small. This particular delegation is limited to 20 people. And we don't have a brochure, which is why we can't mail you a catalog, because each program, each journey is created unique. So we collaborated, of course, with the wonderful Richard Pena on this itinerary. So for those of you joining us today, if you already know Richard, you know what an amazing human being he is. He's a global citizen. He is a human rights advocate, and he's just an all-round wonderful gent. Sadly, he can't be with us today, and he sends his profound apologies. It is unfortunate he's feeling a little unwell. Nothing too serious, and he will be able to be on a future webinar, we hope. But it's unfortunate that Richard can't join us today to share his past experience in Ireland. He was there in 2015, but Michael and I will chat with you about his experiences and why we are again returning to Ireland with Richard. But he's led 19 delegations. Myself and my team have actually created those past delegations. He's been the president of the Texas Bar Association. He's also been the president of the American Bar Foundation. And he was bestowed the wonderful Eisenhower Award by Mary Eisenhower, President Eisenhower's granddaughter, for his commitment and dedication to world peace. So peace through understanding and cultural exchange, which is quite frankly why we are where we are today, creating these learning opportunities for cultural understanding and peace. So thank you, Richard. It's been an absolute pleasure collaborating on this journey with you.
Thank you so much, Nicola. And yeah, I think one of the things, I'm so excited for this conversation, because one of the things that really stood out to me, you know, when we started working on this itinerary was this career enrichment aspect of the journey. You know, we're going to such a beautiful place, Ireland, you know, the rolling green hills, but getting a chance to meet the people and getting a chance to have personal and professional development and peer engagement is such a unique aspect. Can you tell us a little bit about what is that uniqueness? What does that personal and professional and peer engagement look like for this particular itinerary?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's really, again, at the cornerstone of what we do. Richard and I, like I said, we collaborated. We brought in our team. We established a professional mission statement for all of our programs. So we understand what are the learning outcomes, what are we hoping to achieve. And we create opportunities for personal development through engaging with your peers, whether that be people in academia, government oversight, community leaders. And in this case, we'll talk about meeting former political prisoners on both sides of the past conflict. And I'm excited to chat about that shortly also. But you build your network with your colleagues from across the United States and Canada. We have guests that typically join us from all over North America. So it's a great opportunity to talk about things that are important in law, in your practice, and engage with your peers. I call it networking on steroids frequently. You're with each other the whole time, right? So you're engaging in really profound conversations. And we create opportunities for you to also talk to other people that, of course, in Ireland, so in the Republic of Ireland, in Northern Ireland, so you can further develop your understanding of the conflict and apply that to today's kind of society. But as important as the cultural experiences, right? Yeah. So Ireland, I think people are going to have the warmest welcome they've ever had. Many of our guests may have enjoyed Ireland already, have family there, they might have studied there. There's a deep affection between America, of course, and Ireland, and you'll have an opportunity to engage with people in their everyday lives too. And we'll have a guest program. So for our professional members that might want to bring a travel companion along, a spouse, partner, they're very welcome to, and we'll share a little bit about that guest opportunity in a little while.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just where you go, but who you're with, I find. I mean, that's what I love about group travel and bringing somebody with you. And, you know, I love that aspect of this journey as well. It's not just professional engagement. If somebody wants to bring a traveling friend or a companion, a wife, a husband with them, there's something for everyone to do. And it's really just a great addition to this itinerary. We've already got one question about the next aspect, so we're going to answer that question right off the top. In terms of like expenses being deductible for this itinerary or CLE credits, are CLE credits offered on this trip? What does that look like, and as well as the expenses?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So typically for our career enrichment journeys, they are typically qualified for tax deductible item as it's professional development journey. Of course, we recommend that we speak to your own accountant about your own particular circumstances, but yes, they do typically qualify to be tax deductible. And with regards to the CLE credits, Richard has been successful in getting CLE credits through the Texas Bar Association. So after your journey is complete, Richard will provide you with the necessary paperwork, all of the people you met with, the contact hours, who you met with, the specifics around your professional engagements, so that you can then apply to your own state bar for your CLE credits.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's a big aspect of the trip as well. There's additional benefits, not just to experiencing the culture, but also professionally as well on this journey. So we have a great conversation coming up, focusing around three major aspects. Before we kind of get to that conversation, one thing, we do have another question we haven't mentioned yet, but this is being recorded. So for anyone who might not have been able to attend, or if you want to share this with your other colleagues, this will be recorded and shared with all of the attendees that are that have signed up or are in attendance today. So we are
absolutely.
So again, we're having a conversation as well. And although you're muted, we do want you to ask your questions. So please feel free to jump on the chat, go into the question and answer. As we're going through the conversation, I have the questions opened, so I'll be sure to infuse any questions that might seem fit during the conversation. But afterwards, we have time for questions as well, and we'll answer those questions. But today, the three major pillars of this amazing journey are our continuing education, our cultural immersion, that Ireland is so well known for. Their culture has been spread all over the world. We get a chance to experience that culture firsthand in the beautiful Emerald Isle, as well as that guest program we talked about. We want everybody to come with us. We don't just want those in the profession. We want them and their friends or their husbands and their wives, because we do have something ready for everyone. So as we're talking about this itinerary, rule of law and road to peace, I want to just kind of go over the day-to-day real quick. So we fly round trip in and out of Dublin. That doesn't mean you see the 2 nights there. We spend 1 night in Dublin at the beginning and 1 night in Dublin, 2 nights in Dublin in the beginning, not one in the beginning and one at the end. And I find when I saw the itinerary, I was so excited because when I went to Dublin, I had 1 night in the beginning and 1 night at the end, and I didn't get a chance to see much of the city at all. So by actually spending 2 nights in the very beginning of this itinerary gives you plenty of time to see the sights, do a little bit of exploration on your own when there's time, but also get a chance to experience what Dublin is all about. And we missed that when I was there. And it's something that I regret, but it gives me a reason to go back, and I can't wait to go back. After our 2 nights in Dublin, we head north on our way to Belfast, where we'll be spending the rest of our journey. We spent 5 nights in the beautiful city of Belfast. On our way up there, we stop in Strangford, where we have a great cultural experience that we'll be talking about a little bit later in this conversation as well. While we're in Belfast, we get a chance to experience that beautiful city. We spend 1 day out in Derry Londonderry, and experiencing that city as well for a day trip. Everybody gets a chance to go out to Derry Londonderry. And then we come back to Belfast, and before we spend our last day in Belfast, we then drive down to Dublin to fly home. So this itinerary really gives you a great experience both in Ireland and Northern Ireland, all revolving around this professional and peer engagement. So we really, I've been on many tours where, you spend 1 night in every city, and, we joke around about the fact that some itineraries might as well just stay in your pajamas because, there's no reason to changing because you're going to constantly be going. But the thing that you did with this itinerary that I loved was the fact that we're spending 2 nights at least in every city, and we're hubbing it around 2 major cities. What made you choose these 2 cities? I think
it's really, really important, as this is a career development program. We really want to get to the heart of exploring the rule of law and the road to peace, to really engage in conversations that are meaningful. And in order to do that, you have to spend time. You can't be hopping around, checking off your list of the icons that you've seen. That's not this program. Nanda Journeys does create those opportunities elsewhere to have cultural immersion, but the core focus of this is the professional element of the program. And in order for us to provide opportunities for our guests to meet with lawyers, attorneys, to meet with academics, to meet with people that were involved in the conflict resolution during the Troubles, we have to anchor ourselves in these cities. This is where we're going to have the peer engagement, the professional knowledge, and the opportunity to engage in conversations. And they're beautiful cities in of themselves. Even if we were going for a cultural exploration, you can easily fill 9 days in these two cities alone. Yeah. So I find them both, fascinating cities, and they have a different feel. And for all of our guests here today, as travelers, they know that, cities can be the same, but they can be so profoundly different. And having an opportunity to stay in both locations will allow our guests to feel the difference between the Republic of Ireland, between Northern Ireland, understand the differences in the culture. So we're super excited to have people in these two locations.
I mean, they're two beautiful cities. When I was there, they're very walkable. They're very easy to navigate, and there's something going on in both of the cities. So there's always something to do, somewhere to go, someplace to be. So I just love the fact
absolutely
are the core pieces. But in terms of the core of our itinerary, the core of our journey, and what makes this so unique is the continuing education and the peer engagement that happens throughout the journey. Throughout the journey, those that are here for the continuing education will experience high levels of professional engagement, but both with their fellow travelers. You'd mentioned the networking aspects, both within the itinerary, networking on steroids, as you like to call it, as well as experiences that they will have. So tell us a little bit about the importance of the professional engagement that we're going to experience on tour. It's chock full of these experiences, and kind of, those that are interested in going, what makes it so important that they go now? Why now? Why are we going to Ireland now? And what could they pull out of it by traveling?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think we shared with you that Richard did a journey similar to this that we collaborated on back in 2015. So the learning, and again, it's a shame Richard can't be here with us, but what he wanted to convey was how profound the exchange was. And we can learn so much from the conflict. And we're going to be exploring the troubles of the 60s through to the Good Friday Agreement in the late 90s and 98. And we'll be talking to people that had that experience. So when I think about it in terms of why is it relevant today, I think here in the United States and around the world, the polarization of opinions is, I think, really profound at the moment. And there was nothing more polarized than the differences between the two sides in Ireland, right? Nobody ever thought there could possibly be middle ground or a peaceful agreement. But by continuing a dialogue, by opening up conversation, you can ultimately get to a place of agreement. You might not necessarily agree with each other, but I saw a quote from actually a professor at Queen's University that I think really nailed it for me. So I think it was Paul Bew who said, it's like a husband and wife who really don't like each other anymore, but they have to figure out a way to live together, right? So it kind of is like that. And the complexity of Ireland and its history, which of course goes back centuries. It's not just, the late 60s into the 90s. It's the past history. Why did we get to where we are? And what does the future look like? I think there are so many lessons to be learned. Conflict resolution is an important element of our society today, even, and that really doesn't matter where you live. Yeah. So with Richard, we developed a professional purpose statement for this particular program. And if our guest today will allow me just to read that for a second. So the key focus of this program is to learn about the rule of law in Ireland, and specifically the Troubles, lasting from the late 60s to 1998. So you'll hear from lawyers, you'll hear from community members about the road to peace and the conflict resolution. So this program is designed very specifically around those themes, with those learning outcomes being at the center of what we're going to do.
That's great. And I think, I feel now is such a great, a very important time, because so often we talk here in this country about how our problems are so hard and they're never going to be solved, and the right and the left and all of that. And all we have to do is look at not Ireland and Northern Ireland troubles and the conflict and how far they've come. And I look forward to talking a little bit more about that in a minute. But before we do, I think one of the things that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention is another great thing about these two cities is that there's two amazing universities in both of these cities, and our travelers actually get a chance to visit both of these universities. Could you tell us a little bit about the universities, some of the experiences that they're going to have?
Absolutely. So both Queen's University and Trinity College Dublin are among the 100 top law schools in the world. They're frequently in that top 100. So we think it's really important to go and visit with professors and students in both locations, because you're seeing how education is delivered in the Republic of Ireland, in Ireland, and then in the UK, Belfast being in the United Kingdom, of course. So seeing both allows you to compare, contrast, see the similarities and the difference in terms of the educational side of law, and talk to people about those differences. They're both beautiful historical campuses too. So the architecture is amazing, but really what we're focused on here clearly is the engagement, speaking with your peers in academia, to learn about the pathway to your degree programs and your postgrad programs in Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, the schools themselves are gorgeous, and that's a big part. And one of the themes that's going to be continuing, those are 2 days that we have, but one of the things that will continue from the time we land in Dublin throughout the entire journey is the conflict between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And because of this theme, it'll be, like I said, it'll be a part of almost every day from the time we land in Dublin. So could you tell us a little bit about, what is that conflict? Why was that conflict such a big part of the 1960s to 1998? And just a little bit about the conflict between Ireland and Northern Ireland. I mean, we'll get a lot more on the journey, but give us kind of that 30,000-foot view of what it was.
Yeah, I think, a lot of our guests today are probably well read on the subject, or at least have some knowledge. Of course, it was hard to avoid. I think if I talk from my own personal perspective a little bit here, if people will just afford me that opportunity for a few minutes. My accent doesn't lend itself to it now, but I did grow up in the northwest of England. So I'm from England. I moved to the United States in 2001. I was born to English parents in England in the northwest, and all of my grandparents were from the Republic of Ireland. So I was brought up Irish Catholic to all intents and purposes, even though I was born in England. And it wasn't until I became older and curious that I really wanted to understand this differences of opinion, right? We never talked about Catholics and Protestants, and I went to a Catholic school, whereas my other friends in the neighborhood, they went to a Protestant school. So this conversation never really took place. And I had an opportunity when I got older to really dig deep and explore, well, I'm Catholic, so I'm on this side, right? I have to be on this side. That's the way I was brought up. So I can't even begin to imagine what it was like to be in Derry or to be in Belfast growing up, when I clearly felt from a very far distance that commitment to your perspective in that moment, right? So there was no differences exchanged in my conversation growing up as a child. This is why you were really anchored into this one piece of opinion. But clearly I know now there is a lot more complexities. And even Derry Londonderry, right? You can read articles and some people will say Derry, some people will say Londonderry. It's indicative of the side that you kept or continue to keep. But most people living residents in the area, they refer to it as Derry. And as our guests will see, the London part of the signs are often blacked out, so you'll be able to talk to people from both sides. The Falls Road, the Shankill Road, you have the nationalists and the unionists, and you'll get to really understand differences of opinion. And what's very important is hearing both sides of every story, because always, no matter where you are in the world, somewhere in the middle is where you land, I think.
Yeah, and throughout the entire journey, I mean, like we mentioned, this is going to be a part of the entire journey, a theme throughout the entire, and as it was, the conflict was big. There was a long road to peace, and that was one of the major themes as well while we're in Belfast, and this is one of those instances where the experience is so important, or so important to everyone, that everyone gets a chance to go on this amazing journey. So there are instances where the culture and the professional aspect and the guests all come together in an amazing experience. This is, I got to say, probably one of the biggest highlights for me. I didn't get a chance to do this while I was in Belfast. I kind of drove through Belfast, but when I read, that you were going to do this was so intriguing to me. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the road to peace, this guided walking tour that they get of Belfast, that everyone gets a chance to experience.
Yeah, no, it's great. And typically when we're developing a professional program, guests will go on cultural experiences while professional members are engaging in their formal meetings. So this road to peace element, the guided tour of Belfast, it's so profound for guests and professional members of the delegation, and it affords everybody an opportunity to learn because it's part of the history, it's part of the culture. So everybody will do this together. You will have guided experiences with former political prisoners on both sides of the conflict. We'll explore the Shankill roads and the Shankill and the Falls roads. And you'll see the division. It still exists today. There is still barriers that can be drawn. It's very obvious which side of the equation a particular area leans towards, let's say. You'll explore, the International Peace Wall, and you'll also explore the Bobby Sands murals. So Bobby Sands was one of the hunger strikers, and people may or may not be familiar with his story and his other fellow political prisoners in the time, but you'll get to learn about that, have a really good conversation with people from both sides of the conflict. So this is a really immersive day where everybody does it together, and we'll have some wonderful speakers for our guests to really learn from, engage in a conversation, and that's what these professional programs are about, engaging in conversation. It's not lecture-based, it's very immersive, it's very people-centric, and everybody's voice and everybody's opinion is to be explored.
Yeah, and after this tour, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I read in the itinerary, they actually have lunch with the former political prisoners. And it's just so amazing to see how far they've come, that they're actually sitting at the same, table and talking about their experiences. And it's just kind of a great culmination of, this long road to peace that you've just learned about. I think it's a really, really cool effort.
Yeah, it will be fantastic for sure.
Yeah, and then after lunch, I think on that same day, the professionals go off to have a very unique afternoon panel discussion with some local professionals. Anything that you wanted to share in regards to this panel discussion that happens after the road to peace?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really good opportunity to share with our guests joining us today that the final professional engagements will be developed around our participants. So once we learn a little bit more about the backgrounds of our participants and their core interests, what they really want to learn, will solidify this panel. But rest assured, people joining us today, your voice is as important to the conversation. So we will engage with you post-registration in a conversation that allows us to understand what your learning goals are for this particular panel discussion. So all of that will be finalized around our participants on the delegation.
That's great. So it's almost customized to those that are actually traveling on the journey, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And another great highlight in the professional side of things is getting a chance to meet with past political unionist party politicians, that type of thing. Getting a chance to see the past, what it's like in the future, in the present, and kind of the bright future that might lie ahead for Northern Ireland. Anything that you want to add in that aspect?
Yeah, this is a picture of Richard with the former Lord Mayor of Belfast and this 2015 exchange. And again, it is important that the Lord Mayor is appointed and they represent a particular party, but really they are representing the whole city of Belfast. So we'll meet with either the current or former Lord Mayor of Belfast and have a conversation. How does politics work in Belfast? You know, what are the parties? What do they represent? How do they collaborate together to ensure the rule of law is representative of all people in Northern Ireland? So, you know, I think that's a really important factor to this. And meeting with other local representatives in the community that sit on the government is it's profound, right? So you really can't get that experience if you're taking a tour of Ireland. You may potentially stumble across somebody, but we're doing it in a very well orchestrated. What's that word? What am I trying to say here? It's well coordinated. We're going to provide an opportunity for everybody, again, to be part of that conversation. So this gentleman here is Ardor Carson, that you're seeing today. And hopefully we get a chance to catch up with him too. We're hopeful that he's still able to meet with Richard, and you can see that they had a wonderful engagement here. So hoping that he might be around to pop in. We invite guests to lunches and dinners as well, based on their availability. So we're always trying to integrate people from academia, people from the government, and people from the local community into each day to infuse that learning and to infuse that engagement.
Yeah, I mean, one of the highlights, I mean, like you had mentioned, is kind of throughout the entire tour, but one of the highlights that I wanted to mention, or throughout the entire delegation, I should say, one of the things I wanted to mention is this lunch that you've planned with the Law Society of Northern Ireland. You know, this gives you a great opportunity to talk shop, right? To just kind of communicate and talk with other, you know, lawyers in Northern Ireland. And, you know, when my wife and her friends get together and they talk about nursing, I kind of like, you know, I kind of zone out. This is their chance to talk about, you know, all that stuff with the Northern Ireland Law Society. So anything you wanted to kind of add to that?
Yeah, we like to provide formal and casual settings for the engagements, because I think the opportunity to casually explore a topic is different than if you're in a very structured environment. It allows for casual conversation, natural conversation. So this affords our guests an opportunity to ask their questions. You know, what is the role of the association in Northern Ireland? How does it impact lawyers in Northern Ireland? So you can compare it to the Bar Association in your state, and also obviously the American Bar Association. See what the similarities are, see what the differences are, explore learning opportunities collaboratively. The thing about the Nanda Journeys and the professional delegations, it's a peer engagement, right? So we're collaboratively sharing knowledge, and this is a great way to do it in a casual setting. Even though it's coordinated, it's not scripted, right? Yeah. You're here now, you're having lunch, and you're having an opportunity to create friends, you're having an opportunity to create new professional networks, and you're having an opportunity to explore your curiosity about the topic as well.
Yeah, a little bit more of organic conversation that just kind of comes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Professionals. Yeah, I love that. I love that aspect. And we had mentioned, you know, the other big part of what we're going to be doing. Ireland offers such a rich culture, a rich history, just in general, such a rich, such warm, welcoming people. And so just as important as a professional engagement is the opportunity for them to really experience Ireland and seeing the people. And so talking about the amazing culture here in Ireland. When I was there, it was one of the places, you know, us being in the travel industry, we get a chance to travel a lot. But one of the things that I had mentioned leaving Ireland was I'm coming back, because, you know, not very few destinations I've said that about, but it's just one of those places that's so warm and welcoming and beautiful that you just leave saying I'm coming back, because, you know, this was just such an amazing experience. What are your thoughts about, I mean, the culture itself here in Ireland is just amazing.
Yeah, well, it is. So clearly, I shared with you, I'm a little bit biased with my Blood Rose Queen statement earlier today. But no, I mean, having been to over 50 countries myself, there are certain places that touch your heart. My heart already is committed, obviously, to this beautiful part of the world. But the people are so warm, they're so welcoming. They can tell a story like nobody else, which obviously is also a great piece of their culture. And we provide opportunities for you to also immerse yourself in the culture. And pictured here is one of my favorite picture guests participating in a bread making experience with Tracy. So this is going to Tracy's house. You know, you're going to her farmhouse, so you get to see rural Ireland. If you saw on the map earlier, it's actually on the coast. So you're getting to also see a little bit of the coast as you come to Tracy's house. And she'll teach you how to cook soda bread or scones, and you get a hands-on experience. You're making your own scones, you're making your own Irish soda bread, and of course you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But Tracy's just so warm. She's just a member of the community there. She turned her passion for baking into an experience. So that's, again, back to that regenerative travel, that responsible travel. We're always trying to nurture friendships that are organic but sustainable and that can help people in the local community. So Tracy now has created this wonderful business for herself where she teaches Irish baking to our guests, which is amazing. It'll be a highlight for everybody for sure.
Yeah, I always say, there's three aspects of a culture. It's the people, it's the history, and sometimes most importantly, it's the food. And this is a great opportunity for them to try some of that famous Irish food. But I also had mentioned earlier today, and while we're talking through the itinerary, getting a chance to experience Dublin and those 2 nights in the beginning of the itinerary to give you a chance to explore. One of the days that we're there, we actually get a chance to go on a city tour of the beautiful city of Dublin. It's a guided city tour with a local expert. Tell us a little bit about kind of what they're going to be experiencing in the city and some of the highlights that they'll have during that day exploring the beautiful city of Dublin.
Yeah, I think this is a great time as well to share with people that you will have what we refer to as a national guide with you the whole time. So when you land in Dublin, you will have a guide, an Irish guide that's going to be with you the whole time. But layered into your experience are local guides that have a very specific perspective or piece of learning or an expertise. And you'll be joined both in Dublin and Belfast and along the way by local guides that will really hone in on their topic of expertise. So as you say, the Dublin city tour, you're going to see all of the highlights of Dublin. This is the O'Connell Monument pictured here for those of you that are not familiar. And you'll see the bullet holes from the 1916, the uprising there. And you'll also visit the General Post Office. Again, shows us, still bears the scars today of that conflict. And you'll visit the epic Irish Immigration Museum. It's a fascinating experience. They do say that Ireland's biggest export is its people, right? And this is actually a really well done experience where you can see immigration from its origins, right? And if you wanted to then follow up with a genealogist post-visit, they have a wonderful ancestry program at the Epic Immigration Museum. But you can self-navigate here. You could spend days here. I could have spent an entire week here because the learning is so profound. But it charts the past all the way through to the current. So where people emigrate around the world, where are they emigrating to today versus what drove them to emigrate, obviously the Great Famine. So you'll learn so much in this experience here about Irish history and why people had to seek opportunity elsewhere and why we have such a wonderful Irish influenced culture all over the world.
Yeah. I think every major city has an Irish pub in it. So like Ireland just kind of covered the entire world with their beautiful culture. So
they sure have.
Yeah. And also, I mean, getting a chance to visit a local distillery here, learning about Irish whiskey and how they make it. This experience is also an opportunity to meet some of the locals. Tell us a little bit about the Piers Lion Distillery.
Yeah, I think it has an 800-year history here, and it's in Dublin. So it's a great location. Whiskey tasting is a must, right? Whether you like whiskey or you don't like whiskey, tasting a single Irish malt, a sip at least is to be savored, right? But also it's part of the culture as well. So it's really important that we provide fun opportunities for learning. So enjoying a whiskey tasting and a private tour is on the agenda for all of our guests. Of course, everybody will participate in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whiskey tasting. I'm not a big whiskey fan either, but to borrow a phrase from another part of the world, when in Rome, you do
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And then, we'd mentioned on day 6, we take a trip out to Derry, Londonderry, one of the cities kind of at the center of the conflict. And throughout the day, we get a chance to still see where the conflict has left its marks. You mentioned that on the signs, even, the London being scratched out. I remember when I visited on my trip, Derry and Londonderry, we did go on a walking tour and learned more about the conflict and the troubles between Northern Ireland and Ireland. So this, I feel, will be a key highlight, and everybody gets a chance to go to Derry, Londonderry. So, we already talked a little bit about the name. It depends on who you ask what the name is. But tell us a little bit about this experience in Derry and Londonderry. I found that it was probably, I don't know, from my own experience, this is where I felt the conflict being a little bit, more so. In Belfast, yes, you see it, but in Derry, Londonderry, I really felt that tension still a little bit. Just because our guide, I don't remember if he was Protestant or Catholic, but he kind of spoke on his side of the conflict, and it was just a very interesting viewpoint.
Yeah, and you'll find that today, of course, which is why we afford people an opportunity to speak to people from both sides, and everybody can express an opinion about the past and the current and the future. And one of the topics to be explored, which is different, of course, to when Richard was there last time, is Brexit. So how has Brexit impacted the rule of law? How has it impacted the continued peace agreement, right? The conversation around the border, right? That had kind of been put to bed in the Good Friday Agreement. But now all of a sudden you have the Republic of Ireland that continues to be part of the European Union, and Northern Ireland that is now not part of the European Union. So that's a conversation that'll be explored. Derry, Londonderry, depends on which side, if you ask me, because of the way I was brought up, I'm going to say Derry. That's just because of the way I was brought up. But what I come to realize today is the two are synonymous, right? There actually really isn't an agreement as to what is it. It depends who you ask, right? That's kind of the important learning. But Derry, yes, being part of that civil rights movement, back in the 60s, you will still feel the presence of that, the murals around the city, the people you talk to. It's a walled city. So I think one of the last remaining European fully walled cities, 400 years old. So it's important on this particular program that we go to this part of Northern Ireland. It borders Donegal, of course, which was a very contentious border conversation during the peace agreement. So you'll learn about that and you'll have conversations around that too. So yeah, this is one of many, many murals you'll see around the city, both in Derry and also in Belfast. And, it's memorialized in time, right? These artist renderings of the conflict and the bloodshed. And it was a really, really difficult time. And one can't avoid how bloody it was. We're going to have conversations around that. So this date also is for our guests and for the professional members of the delegation. Again, back to that point that it affords you an opportunity to really understand the culture, the history, where we are today, and where we're going in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it just drives home how far they've really come. It really is just amazing how the piece that's there now. I mean, getting a chance to see this museum and the main signature project of Bloody Sunday, and really what happened to the many stories and conflicts that during that time frame known as Free Derry during 1968 to 1972. It really is going to be a memorable part of the entire journey. So we had talked about in terms of culture, and we talked about professional engagement. The last piece is we want everybody coming. We want everybody joining us on this amazing journey. If you're a professional and you want to bring someone along with you, definitely we want to be able to have their guests come along, because I said it before, it's not just where you go, but who you're with. And your guest program that is so well designed in terms of that free time that the guests might have instead of going on the professional engagement. One of the things is the Titanic Museum, but tell us a little bit about the guest program, how you've designed it, and some of the things that the guests will be able to do on the journey.
Yeah, so in those moments, the half days where the professional members are going to be at the University of Trinity College Dublin, let's say, or Queen's in Belfast, or meeting with attorneys, or meeting with your peers, guests on the program will be in cultural activities that are privately guided. So one of those is exploring the Titanic Museum. Obviously, very integral part to Northern Ireland's history. So this is a group of ours actually who recently explored Titanic. Clearly, they did not have a good time whatsoever. But it's an interactive exhibit. So again, you can self-navigate based on your core interests. So what is it you want to learn about this particular piece of history? And then other things that we have planned for our guests is a little bit of free time to be able to explore, go shopping. We will introduce a little bit of that as well for our professional members of the group. Obviously, we have a very structured itinerary because we want to pack in as much as possible. But there are some evenings that are available to both of you to explore independently. And our guests, again, when professional members are in their formal engagements, will explore Hillsborough Castle in Belfast. So again, they'll get an opportunity to look at the Royal Palace, explore the grounds, explore inside. And they'll have high tea as well. And Merchant House is one of the experiences. So visiting the United Kingdom and not having high tea is probably, it's not proper, as we would say back in England.
Not proper. I like that. That's better.
Not proper. Yeah. So I the meals, Michael, you and I can chat about this a little bit, but the meals together are, I think, what anchors everybody on this experience. So people, when they arrive, they don't know each other, right? You've witnessed that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that really stood out to me, I mean, a lot of the, we've been in this industry for a long time, and some tour operators don't really include a lot of meals, and that's always an added expense that you have to kind of account for. You've done such a great job including the meals as well. The welcome dinner and the farewell dinner. I love those two moments of a tour because the welcome dinner is, very quiet. Everybody's kind of talking with their traveling companion or maybe the person across the table from them. And the farewell dinner is such a bittersweet moment. Everybody's having a great time. Everybody's talking with everyone. You're kind of ready to go home, but you're not ready to say goodbyes. You're exchanging, email addresses and things like that. The meals, I feel, are really where the group comes together. And you really start to build those friendships that last a lifetime. And so I feel like these meals that are included will truly become a highlight of the trip as well.
Yeah, so. And that, the farewell dinner becomes that reflective moment. So you're sharing your experiences, you're sharing your knowledge, you're sharing what resonated with you the most, what are you taking back, what topics are left to be explored, how can you apply them in your own practice, how can we apply them in your own teaching if you're in academia. So the farewell dinner really is one of those things that nobody wants to leave the table. I've seen that many times. This particular group you're seeing here are music educators that were just in Ireland this past summer, actually. So they still have a text message going on, and they text each other every day. They didn't know each other before they started on this journey. So that is a really profound element. And we include most lunches and breakfasts, as I think you covered earlier. So yeah, meals, the cornerstone. We're going to go to the pubs. We're going to experience great Irish food. And of course, good Irish music along the way too.
Yeah. And so as we're kind of coming to the end, the final details for those of you that are interested in joining us, our tour departs October 6th and arrives back October 14th, 2023. So 9 days, 8 nights. We were just talking about the meals. That's 15 meals, breakfast every morning, 5 lunches, and 2 dinners. The cost per person is $5,999 per person. That includes land and airfare out of New York City based on double occupancy. If New York City isn't a gateway that's convenient for you, we do offer land-only land-only tours, and then you can work with Nanda Journeys to book your airfare or book the airfare on your own as well. If you're looking at traveling as a single, we do encourage you to bring a guest along, but if you want to travel as a single, there is a $999 single supplement for those traveling as a single. For those interested in holding their space, there is a deposit due of $500 per person that holds your space. And if you're interested in purchasing travel insurance would need to be purchased at the time of deposit or shortly thereafter. And Nanda Journeys highly recommends travel insurance, and they can help you to purchase it because they offer it as well. Please note that this is a limited space journey. We're only allowed to have 20 people on this particular experience. And last I checked, we had close to 30 people registered for this webinar. So there's a lot of interest. We fully anticipate that this tour is going to sell out. So the one thing that I do mention is that deposit of $500 is fully refundable up until May 9th, minus a $95 service fee. So if you're interested in holding your space on this itinerary, and you want a little bit more time to think about it, that $95 is something that's worth it. If, a few months down the road, something changes in your life, it's better to put that deposit down and get that refund as opposed to saying, on May 1st, deciding you want to go, and unfortunately the space not being available for you. I like to say better to have the seat and not need it than need the seat and not have it available.
That is so true.
So with 20 people on the journey, it keeps it intimate. It keeps it, it keeps the conversations more personal. You get a chance to meet and see everyone. We do that on purpose because it makes the journey a lot more meaningful, a lot more impactful for those that do attend. One last note that we do want to mention is Nanda Journeys is also offering a savings of up to $200 per person if booked before February 15th. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Nicola? And how they're
we will provide a follow-up to everybody that registered and joined our webinar today. And thank you again for everybody for joining. I'll provide details of that $200 credit that's available for reservations that are made before that February 15th. And also on the pricing, as we mentioned with New York, if it's not your preferred airport, we will work with you to make a connecting flight. Or if you have points or you have miles that you need to use, we will give you a credit for your airfare. So we'll reduce the price of the program for you and you can book your own flights. I know these post-COVID times, people have a lot of air miles or credits or things to use. So it's a very flexible offer for you. You can book as a land package, which is the price you're seeing here, or a land-only package without the airfare.
Awesome. And so we do have a few questions. Somebody mentioning that whiskey is the best. So we can agree to disagree on that point. They're anonymous. Again,
I agree.
Somebody asking if this will be recorded, and absolutely yes. For those of you that might have missed a part of our presentation this afternoon, or somebody that might not have been able to join you, or you're listening to this recording as we speak because you weren't able to join us today, this is being recorded and will be sent out following this presentation as well. Another question that we have is in regards to the weather. Are you familiar with the weather in October in Ireland?
The weather in Ireland year-round is changeable. That is the word of the day always. So you may get some rain, some light rain in October. You probably will have some cloudy days. But as I tell everybody, if you go to Ireland and you don't have some good authentic rain, then you've really not experienced Ireland the way the Irish people do. So yeah, you may get some rain. So our recommendation is pack layers, pack a light rain jacket. As far as temperatures go, you can be anything from the mid-50s to 60s, I would say, for this time of the year. But the sun does shine. That's why it's beautiful and green. It's wet and it's sunny. Not necessarily in equal measure, but definitely has both. So changeable is the word of the day.
Yeah, but the good thing is it's not going to be too hot or too cold. It's like perfect touring temperatures. You're never going to be too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Throughout the journey.
In my visits to back to Northern England, which shares very similar weather, had the most beautiful weather in October. So, Mother Nature, one never knows. You can have winter in summer, or you can have summer in the fall. It's just hard to know.
Right. That old saying, if you don't like the weather here in New England, I know it's all around the world, but if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. And you might like it in 10 minutes. And then the last question, we just got another one. Will meal options accommodate vegetarians? So are there options for meals for vegetarian.
100%, yes. And we will engage in a conversation with all of our registered guests. We will receive information from you in terms of any specific meal requirements, allergies, or any other needs that need to be accommodated. So yes, absolutely, vegetarian option will be available at all meals.
And a question that's near and dear to my heart is, I feel you can never get too much Ireland in a journey. For those interested in flying in early, maybe spending an extra day or, flying out a few days later, is that an option for travelers?
It is, yeah. And we are looking at a potential Scotland extension if people are interested in that. Or if people independently want to do some explorations and want to go in early, we can assist with that, or you can make your own arrangements. We are here to support you in the experience the way you want to enjoy it. So yep, any of those accommodations can be made and supported. Great.
It looks like those are all the questions for now. But if you do come up with any questions, post this webinar or after you've watched the recording, you can always get more information by going to www.nandajourneys.com and clicking on the Ireland Rule of Law and Road to Peace itinerary there. Also, you can always feel free to call Nanda Journeys as Nanda Journeys at 888-747-7501, or you can send us an email at info@nandajourneys.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. Any final words, Nicola, before we...
Yeah, I like to say, well, thank you, first of all, for being my co-host today. We missed Richard, of course, and I'm really sorry he wasn't able to make it. But again, to everybody joining, welcome to the Nanda family. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedules today to join us to learn a little bit more about this Ireland Rule of Law and Road to Peace journey. Sincerely hope you're able to join Richard in October, and I warmly welcome any and all questions. I'm very involved in my business and I love to talk travel, so no question is unreasonable, or please engage in a conversation with us. We're here to help, and I look forward to connecting with you all on your journey to Ireland.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We love you spending your time with us. And we look forward to seeing you in October later this year.